Hello team. This week you are going to be working on Unit D, which is Excel Module 3 and a course survey. So in this folder there is just a survey that we would just want to gather some feedback to know how the course is going for you. This is anonymous, but it says there is some extra credit associated with it. You don't get many opportunities for that, so I'd take advantage of that. And then you have your typical activities in our Excel book. You're going to have the SAM training, which we will probably cover some of that in class this week. You'll have your textbook project, and you will have your 50-point project. So you have a 25-point textbook project and then the SAM project worth 50 points. That's what's on the schedule for this week. When you guys do the SAM training this week, I will let you know that there were quite a few, like up to this point, a lot of it maybe has been review if you've had a little bit of Excel before, but there's a lot of new things in there, so you'll want to set aside maybe a little bit of extra time for doing that. If we go to the textbook, I just want to highlight a couple of things that are going to be in this week and that we are going to cover in lecture during class. So if we go to the table of contents here, this particular chapter is going to deal with working with larger worksheets and how to split worksheets and how to set things up so that it's easier to view things as you're working with things. It's also going to work with putting not just formulas, but decision statements, kind of what-if statements, and some other charting, which means some additional graphics that make it easier for you to view the results. So another thing I would recommend as you're working through your projects, don't forget to come back to this table of contents, and because every single project usually has some of these concepts that it's asking you to do, so you can come right back to this table of contents, click on okay, how do I rotate something in a cell, and if you're working through the projects you're probably already in that section, but just in case you need to, this is also a nice way to come back and just quickly get to what you want to do. I do want to spend just a little bit of time to talk about some of the decision making options in this particular week's work, and that is using the if function. We will go over some lessons in class on this, but basically this is when you use the if function. The format of an if function is that it's asking a question, and it's basically asking a yes or no question. And so this right here is the format that you'll see for the if function. It's like a formula, so you start with an equal sign. You start with if, which is your function. You can use the insert function or you can type it in. This is a special one because it has an and statement. They don't always have to have an and statement. And then you have a question. So this whole section right here is like asking a question. Okay. Then if this question is true, the following statement's going to get executed, the okay part. If it's false, the not okay part will get executed. And so if I take a look at, I'm trying to find maybe an example. Here's an example where it doesn't have an and or an or. It asks a single question. So if B4 is greater than or equal to $B, $21, then you're going to assign it this value if it's true. You're going to assign the value, the cell, 0 if it's false. So whatever cell you are in will get assigned the value from cell B20 if it's true, or the value 0 if it's false. The other thing, if you take a notice, so that's kind of like one of the decision statements that we're going to be talking about. So those types of expressions are probably what's going to be the newest material in this unit, or maybe material that you have not run across before in an Excel sheet. The other thing is this $B, $21. Whenever we put these dollar signs in front of our cell reference, what that means is it takes this it's not a formula that changes. So if I were to copy this formula, it's always going to be whatever's in cell B21. It's not going to change the reference. Like when you copy something from one cell to another, a lot of times it changes that reference to be a corresponding cell. and we'll talk more about this in class. So that $B, $21 means it's going to take that particular value from that cell, and if you copy those values, it's not going to change the cell reference. Again, this is the generic format of the if function. So if you have a logical test, that's going to be your question. This is going to be the result if it's true, and then the following value will be the result if it's false. Going back to our table of contents, another thing that might be kind of new this week are these idea of spark line graphs. And so when you do a spark line chart, that's actually adding a little tiny graph into your spreadsheet. And so the apply section in your SAM's training is very good at showing you how to do this, but we've got to be under the insert tab, and then we use the spark line button. But I just wanted you to show you what the result might be. It's going to be like this little, you can just barely see it here. It's like a little squiggly, or a little chart right inside your spreadsheet. So it makes whatever data that you're dealing with in your spreadsheet more visible. And so that is also something that's going to be kind of new this week. The other thing is they will actually do nested if functions. So that's going to be an if within an if. So again, you might want to take a little bit of extra time to look at nested if functions. Let me see what they have for an example here. And so it starts off with an if function. Then you have the question that will evaluate to true or false this statement. Then you have another if statement inside of that. So you have an if statement inside of an if statement. So that's another kind of new feature that you're going to be looking at this week. Whoops, let me go back to the table of contents. So those are the main things that I wanted to highlight. We are going to be doing or looking at several examples of those in class. And so as always, the apply features in your SAM's training are very, very good for showing you what to do, and the textbook steps you through everything. But in this particular chapter, probably more than the other ones to start with, you are going to have to pay a little bit closer attention to the details because there is some newer material than maybe what you've seen in the past few weeks. Good luck this week, and don't forget to email if you have any questions.